We'll be going on the AC, then on the NC, all just pretty clear signposting, and a lot of crystallization. This round is going to be very, very simple because Jalon does not extend any of his framework justification. Remember, his criteria is premised upon him winning the Van Dora evidence. He does not extend any of the reasons why oppression is uniquely bad or a reason for his standard over my standard. But what's more, I do a lot of weighing the last speech as reason for my own standards. So that's the reason why only my impacts are relevant. Even though Jalon gave a fantastic performance in the last speech, he is simply not above the framework debate. So, on the AC, extend relative one that says that humans have subjective interests which supervene upon natural properties. Our subjective interest can be distinct from objective interest who must evaluate a person who has complete knowledge of himself or who would want a person for limited knowledge. Then extend relative two that says subjective and objective interests interact with the wants, interest, mechanism. Trial and error leads to people that wants that are beneficial. Then extend relative three that says in society, social rationality accounts for the objective interests of all individuals. Then extend relative four that says dissatisfaction in society causes unrest. Finally, extend relative five that says that feedback requires both parties to have symmetrical power to infringe upon each other's freedom. Then extend the criterion of preserving social rationality. Then you're going to be extending the weighing I did in the last speech. Extend Jus. Jus says that when you make a judgment X is good, you can always question whether X is good without a resolution. That's not theoretical theories to collapse into tautology to trigger nihilism to think and explain why an action is good. Then extend the first is why relevant solves. And the same as prescriptive force, then it guides actions that require increase. My criteria meets because incongruence between wants and interests guide people to reform behavior. So, this is going to be the easiest place for you to not be voting for Jalon because remember, he makes a whole bunch of arguments about why textuality is bad and why oppression is bad, but he is not extending his Van Dora evidence, he's not extending his own standard. You're going to pretty much have to be intervening for Jalon. So, that means standards, preserving social rationality, I'm the only one with impacts back to it. He tries to make a textuality argument with oppression links, but remember, those don't have impacts, he's not linking those directly into my own standards. So, that means you can send the federally analysis. Federally says that states use erosive social welfare to maximize control over young people. Juvenile courts are based on coercing children and families living in poverty, or this form of domination is hidden by routinization. Therefore, affirming is necessary to rectify this coercion and maintain feedback between individuals in the state. That means that I'm winning the federally analysis, I'm winning a very clear impact back to my standard. He tries to extend his argument through ink that says that disenfranchised people can't check back, but I make two arguments that are very good. The first argument is that I am delinking this argument. Remember, the spike at the very top of the AC is that I only have to defend a hypothetical scenario, meaning that I don't have to defend disenfranchisement. That's just a quirk of the adult justice system. So, there's actually no offense coming out of the AC. But then you can say the second person that this has no linkage to my standard because the whole point is we have to have discursive channels between individuals and the state. There's no reason why voting is the only channel. For example, most Supreme Court cases have to do with people that are in prison anyway. So that means that there's still going to be the discursive channels that are necessary to check back the oppressive government. I'm way ahead on the AC debate. Rebar, you can sign your ballot right here, right now. Then let's go to the NC and accept all the arguments that Jalon mishandled. The first argument is that Jalon won't answer my questions. So he tries to answer this by saying I'm not answering his questions. No, the question I wouldn't answer is I'm not going to say oppression isn't a priori wrong because that would obviously conflict with my case. It's the same way that if he asked me to give him all of my blocks and I decide not to give him all of my blocks and all my front lines to my own cases, then I would that you can't call that not answering questions. However, Jalon actually wouldn't answer questions. I was asking serious questions about the discursive impacts of his arguments. He refused to answer them, meaning that none of his impact arguments are relevant anymore. You can that turns back 100% of the NC. But then you can say the second argument about trivializing the issue. He says, yeah, fine, maybe I am trivializing the issue. All I want to do is ground. So this is really problematic because this undercuts all of his arguments. He's trying to make a social change against oppression, and people are only resisting the social change because they know that Jalon's only doing it through the rounds. So here's how the round's breaking down. The easiest place for you to vote is on the AC. Listen, I'm way ahead on the framework debate after including any of his arguments, not linking to my standard. If you don't want to vote there, there are two pretty conceded turns on the NC, which you'll be voting after either. Your choice.